Welcome back to our journey of healing. In our last discussion, we uncovered the incredible and hopeful truth that the brain can indeed heal itself. We explored how powerful therapeutic approaches can kickstart the process of rebuilding the hippocampus, the part of our brain responsible for memory and emotional regulation. Today, we are diving deeper. We are going to explore the practical, everyday lifestyle choices that can powerfully support this healing journey. We'll look at what the path forward looks like as your brain rediscovers a sense of safety and balance. Let's start with something you can do right now. Breathe. Simple activities like deep, mindful breathing, gentle yoga, and meditation are more than just relaxation techniques. They actively lower the levels of cortisol, the stress hormone that can damage the hippocampus. By reducing cortisol, you're recreating a protective environment where your hippocampus can not only survive but thrive and even grow. Think of it as giving your brain the calm space it needs to begin its repair work. It's about signaling to your nervous system that you are safe in this present moment. Next, let's get moving. Regular aerobic activity is one of the most effective ways to boost brain health. We're not talking about running marathons, unless you enjoy that. A brisk walk in nature, a leisurely swim, or a bike ride can do wonders. Exercise promotes what's called neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells, especially in the hippocampus. This directly enhances your brain's ability to form new memories and improves overall cognitive function. It's like a workout for your brain, strengthening its core and making it more resilient. Plus, the rhythmic nature of these activities can be incredibly grounding and meditative in itself. Now, let's talk about the unsung hero of brain health, sleep. When we sleep, our brains are anything but dormant. This is when the real magic happens. Sleep is crucial for memory consolidation. It's the time when the hippocampus diligently sorts through the day's experiences, filing them away in the right places. For a brain healing from trauma, this process is vital. Quality sleep allows the hippocampus to process difficult experiences effectively, reducing their emotional charge and helping to integrate them into your life story in a healthier way. Prioritizing a consistent sleep schedule and creating a restful environment is a non-negotiable act of self-care for your brain. What we feed our bodies, we feed our brains. A brain-healthy diet plays a significant role in repairing and supporting the hippocampus. Think of foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids, like those found in fish, walnuts, and flax seeds. These are the literal building blocks of brain cells. Antioxidants, abundant in colorful fruits and vegetables like berries, spinach, and bell peppers, help fight off inflammation and cellular stress. By focusing on whole, unprocessed foods, you provide your brain with the high-quality fuel it needs to rebuild and function optimally. It's not about restriction, it's about nourishing your brain from the inside out. Healing also happens through connection and expression. This is where activities like art, music, and journaling come in. These creative outlets provide a non-verbal way to process emotions and experiences that might be too difficult to put into words. They help the hippocampus rebuild its ability to attach appropriate emotional context to memories. At the same time, nurturing safe and supportive relationships is fundamental. Positive social connections help regulate our nervous system and reinforce feelings of trust and safety, which is essential for a hippocampus that has learned to be on high alert. These connections remind our brain that it's safe to let its guard down. So what does all of this effort lead to? What does it feel like when the hippocampus starts to heal? Essentially, you're helping your brain re-establish a healthy sense of time and safety. As the hippocampus recovers, you'll notice that memories become more organized. They start to feel like they have a clear beginning and end. Those intrusive flashbacks and overwhelming emotional responses begin to lessen. The trauma starts to feel like something that happened in the past, a part of your story, but not something that defines your entire present moment. It loses its power to hijack your reality. This integration is where true emotional balance comes from. As the past settles into its proper place, you'll find more clarity, more mental space, and a renewed sense of resilience. Your brain learns, on a deep, physiological level, that safety is possible again. You start to feel more present in your own life, able to engage with the world without the constant fear of being triggered. This isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about your brain learning that the danger is over. You are safe now. It's so important to remember that healing is not a straight line. It's not a linear progression from unwell to well. There will be good days where your brain feels calm, clear, and peaceful. And there will be other days when old memories or feelings resurface unexpectedly. This is normal. It's part of the process. Don't be discouraged by the setbacks. Each time you notice these feelings and bring yourself back to the present moment, you are actively strengthening your hippocampus. Each moment of awareness, each deep breath, each conscious choice to care for yourself is a victory. It reinforces your brain's ability to separate the past from the present. Think of the hippocampus as the storyteller of your brain. When trauma hits, it disrupts that storyteller's voice. The narrative becomes fragmented, chaotic, and confusing. Life can feel like a jumble of disconnected, painful moments. But with time, patience, and consistent care, that story can be rewritten. The narrative can be healed. Through these practices, breathing, moving, sleeping, nourishing, connecting, and creating, you are giving your storyteller the tools it needs to find its voice again. You're helping it piece the story back together in a way that makes sense, a way that allows for a future filled with peace and potential. The human brain's capacity for healing is truly one of the most remarkable and hopeful aspects of our existence. Your brain can heal. Your mind can find peace. And the past can finally take its rightful place, behind you, not within you. You are capable of rewriting your story, one healing moment at a time. Thank you so much for joining me on this part of the journey. If this conversation was helpful, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content on healing and mental well-being. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey into the amazing world of the human brain. In our last video, we got to know the prefrontal cortex, or PFC for short. We called it the calm, wise captain of our brain, the part that helps us think logically, plan for the future, and keep our emotions in check. It's the CEO, the adult in the room, making sure everything runs smoothly. We saw how a strong PFC helps us navigate life's ups and downs with a sense of balance and control. But what happens when that captain isn't at the helm? What if, during a storm, the captain is thrown overboard, leaving the rest of the crew to fend for themselves in chaos? That's exactly what we are diving into today. We're going to explore what happens when trauma and chronic stress hijack our brains and effectively shut down the prefrontal cortex. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a real neurological process that can dramatically change how we think, feel, and behave. When the wise captain is offline, our more primal, emotional brain takes complete control. And the consequences can be profound, affecting everything from our relationships to our ability to simply get through the day. So, let's start with the moment of impact. When a traumatic event occurs, whether it's a car accident, a sudden loss, or a long period of intense stress, our brain's primary mission becomes one thing and one thing only: survival. At this moment, your brain doesn't care about your long-term goals, your to-do list, or being polite. It just wants to keep you alive. To do this, it activates its ancient, hardwired survival system. At the heart of this system is a tiny, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Think of the amygdala as the brain's alarm system or smoke detector. Its job is to scan for threats and, when it detects danger, to sound the alarm loud and clear. When the amygdala screams danger, it triggers a cascade of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, preparing your body for fight, flight, or freeze. Your heart pounds, your breathing quickens, and your muscles tense up. You're ready to react in a split second. But for this super-fast survival response to work, the brain has to make a critical trade-off. It needs to divert all its energy and resources to the immediate threat. And where does it get that energy? It pulls it from the parts of the brain that aren't essential for immediate survival. And one of the first areas to go offline is our calm, rational captain, the prefrontal cortex. The PFC, with its slow, deliberate, and analytical way of thinking, is just too slow for a life or death situation. You don't have time to weigh the pros and cons when a car is speeding towards you. You just need to jump out of the way. So, the brain effectively presses the pause button on the PFC. This is a brilliant survival mechanism. It helps you react instinctively and powerfully when you're in real danger. The problem is, this system was designed for short, intense bursts of threat, like escaping a predator. It wasn't designed to be activated over and over again, day after day, by chronic stress or the lingering effects of trauma. When the prefrontal cortex is repeatedly shut down, it's like a muscle that isn't being used. It starts to weaken. The neural pathways that connect the PFC to the rest of the brain, especially to the emotional centers like the amygdala, become less efficient. Meanwhile, the amygdala, which is getting a constant workout, becomes overactive and hypersensitive. The alarm system gets stuck in the on position. This creates a new default state for the brain, one where the emotional brain is in the driver's seat and the logical brain is stuck in the back, unable to grab the wheel. This imbalance is the root of so many of the challenges people face after trauma. Let's break down what this actually looks like in everyday life. One of the most common consequences is a significant reduction in emotional regulation. Remember, the PFC is what helps us put the brakes on our emotions. It allows us to feel an emotion, like frustration, without letting it take over completely. But when the PFC is weakened, those brakes don't work as well. You might find yourself crying at the drop of a hat, getting intensely angry over small things, or feeling completely overwhelmed by situations that wouldn't have bothered you before. Here's a classic example. You accidentally spill your morning coffee. For someone with a well-functioning PFC, this is annoying. You sigh, clean it up, and make a new cup. But for someone whose PFC is offline, that small accident can trigger a massive emotional wave. It doesn't just feel annoying, it feels catastrophic. You might burst into tears, start yelling in frustration, or feel a wave of despair, thinking, "My whole day is ruined. I can't do anything right." The emotional reaction is completely out of proportion to the event, but it feels incredibly real and powerful because the emotional brain is running the show without any rational filter. Another major sign is an increase in impulsive reactions. The PFC is our pause and think button. It helps us consider the consequences of our actions before we take them. Without that pause, we are left with pure, unfiltered impulse. You act first and think later, if at all. This can show up in many ways. It could be lashing out verbally in an argument, saying things you later regret. It could be making rash decisions, like suddenly quitting a job without a backup plan or spending a large amount of money you can't afford on a whim. In relationships, this can be particularly damaging. Imagine a friend says something that hurts your feelings. With a healthy PFC, you might take a moment, process the hurt, and then decide to talk to them about it. But with a weakened PFC, the immediate sting of hurt can trigger an impulsive, defensive reaction. You might immediately send an angry text, block them on all social media, and decide the friendship is over, all within minutes. The emotional brain, driven by the amygdala, sees the hurt as a threat and reacts to eliminate it as quickly as possible, bypassing any chance for thoughtful communication or resolution. Next up is something many people can relate to: difficulty concentrating. The prefrontal cortex is the command center for our executive functions, which include focus, attention, and working memory. When it's struggling, our ability to concentrate plummets. You might sit down at your desk, determined to get work done, but find your mind jumping from one thought to another like a frantic monkey. You try to read a report, but you find yourself staring at the same sentence 5 times and still having no idea what it says. You're constantly distracted by external noises or your own internal monologue of worries. This isn't a lack of willpower, it's a genuine neurological impairment. Your brain is so busy scanning for threats, real or imagined, that it doesn't have the cognitive resources left over for complex tasks that require sustained focus. This directly leads to our next point: poor decision-making. Good decisions require us to weigh future outcomes, consider different perspectives, and use logic to guide our choices, all jobs of the prefrontal cortex. When the emotional brain is in charge, our decisions are often based on fear, avoidance, and short-term relief rather than long-term benefit. You might start avoiding anything that feels new or challenging because it triggers a sense of threat. You might turn down a promotion at work because the new responsibilities feel too risky, even if it's a great opportunity. You might stick with unhealthy habits or relationships because the thought of change is so overwhelming that staying in a familiar, albeit painful, situation feels safer. Your world can start to shrink as you make more and more choices based on fear, all because the part of your brain designed for logical, forward thinking is being silenced. Finally, and perhaps one of the most confusing symptoms, is emotional numbness or detachment. This might seem contradictory. If the emotional brain is in overdrive, how can you feel nothing at all? This is a protective mechanism. When the emotional system is overwhelmed for too long, the brain can flip a switch to shut it all down to prevent a complete system overload. This is often described as feeling disconnected, numb, or like you're watching your own life from a distance, as if it's a movie. You might go through the motions of your day, work, eat, interact with people, but feel empty inside. You might know, intellectually, that something sad has happened, but you can't access the feeling. You can't cry. Or you might know you should be happy about good news, but you just feel flat. This isn't you not caring. It is your brain protecting itself from an unbearable level of emotional pain by temporarily severing the connection to all feeling, good and bad. It's so important to understand that all of this, the emotional outbursts, the impulsivity, the lack of focus, the fear-based decisions, and the numbness is not a reflection of your character. It's not a sign of weakness or a personal failing. It is a predictable, physiological response of a brain that has been through too much. It's the brain doing its best to survive under overwhelming circumstances, even if those survival strategies cause problems in your daily life. The captain has been thrown overboard, and the crew is in survival mode. The good news is that this is not a permanent state. The brain is incredibly plastic, meaning it can change and heal. We can bring the captain back on board. We can strengthen our prefrontal cortex and restore the balance between our logical and emotional brains. In our next video, we'll explore exactly how to do that. We'll look at powerful, evidence-based techniques like mindfulness, therapy, and specific lifestyle changes that can help rebuild those neural pathways, calm the overactive amygdala, and put your wise, rational self back in the driver's seat. Thank you so much for joining me today to understand this crucial aspect of our mental well-being. If any of this resonated with you, please know you are not alone, and there is hope for healing. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in our series. See you in the next video. In our last video, we talked about how trauma can essentially shut down the prefrontal cortex, our brain's rational command center, and let the emotional brain take the wheel. It's a fascinating but also a really tough concept. So today, I want to move from the theory to the reality. What does it actually feel like to live your life, day in and day out, when the captain of your brain is off duty? How does this play out in real-world scenarios, in our jobs, our relationships, and just our own internal world? When your prefrontal cortex, or PFC for short, is underactive, life can feel relentlessly chaotic and foggy. It's like you're trying to navigate through a thick mist without a compass. You might find yourself struggling to finish tasks, even simple ones. You start a project with enthusiasm, but then your focus drifts, and you end up with a dozen half-finished things cluttering your space and your mind. Making plans can feel like an impossible mountain to climb. You want to organize your week, set goals, or even just decide what to have for dinner, but the options feel overwhelming, and you just can't seem to make a clear decision. This often leads to a constant feeling of being one step behind, always playing catch-up while everyone else seems to be moving forward with ease. This isn't just about disorganization. It fundamentally changes how you experience your own life. It can feel like you're no longer the driver of your own car. Instead, you're a passenger being jerked around by every bump in the road. You're constantly reacting to life's events instead of consciously choosing your path. An unexpected email from your boss sends you into a spiral of anxiety. A slightly critical comment from a friend triggers a wave of defensiveness. You find yourself getting pulled into arguments you never intended to have, saying things you don't mean, or making impulsive decisions that you almost immediately regret. Maybe it's an impulse buy you can't afford, or blurting out a secret you promised to keep. It's that feeling of looking back and thinking, why did I do that? That's not me. This state also deeply impacts our ability to connect with others. When the emotional brain is running the show, its primary job is to scan for threats. As a result, trusting people can feel incredibly difficult, if not impossible. You might find yourself second-guessing everyone's motives, assuming the worst, or keeping people at a distance to protect yourself from potential hurt. This can be incredibly isolating. You might crave connection, but the very idea of letting someone in feels too risky. This can lead to a constant, low-level sense of dread or anxiety that hums in the background of your life. It's the feeling of being stuck in survival mode, where your body and mind are perpetually braced for a threat that may or may not even be there. It's exhausting to live this way, constantly on high alert. Let's look at a classic, all-too-common example of this in action. Imagine you have to have a difficult conversation with a partner or a family member. You know it's going to be tense. So, you prepare. You tell yourself, okay, this time I'm going to stay calm. I'm going to listen, I'm not going to get defensive, and I'm going to express myself clearly and respectfully. You walk into the room with the best intentions, feeling confident in your plan. The conversation starts, and for the first minute, it's going okay. But then, they say that one thing. That one phrase that hits a nerve. Instantly, you feel that familiar, hot surge of anger or that cold knot of fear in your stomach. And just like that, all your well-laid plans fly out the window. Before you know it, you're yelling, or shutting down completely, or saying something hurtful. The rational part of your brain that made the plan is gone, and the emotional, reactive part has taken over completely. Later, maybe hours later, the regret and shame wash over you. You think, I promised myself I wouldn't do that again. What's wrong with me? That right there is a clear sign that in that critical moment, your prefrontal cortex wasn't strong enough to override the powerful emotional impulse coming from your amygdala, the brain's alarm system. It's not a failure of character or a lack of willpower. It's a neurological process. Your amygdala screamed threat. And your PFC wasn't able to step in and say, hold on, we are safe, let's think this through. So, the million-dollar question is, what can you do? How do you start to bring the captain back on duty, especially in those high-stress moments? It might feel impossible, but there are practical, concrete strategies you can use to start rebuilding that connection to your PFC, and the good news is, they don't require years of training to start. You can begin right now. First, and this is the most critical step in the heat of the moment, pause before you react. This is so much harder than it sounds, but it's the foundation of everything. When you feel that emotional surge, your instinct is to act immediately. Instead, train yourself to create a tiny gap. Count to 5. Take one slow, deep breath. Walk into another room for a minute. This tiny pause is a lifeline. It interrupts the lightning-fast signal from your amygdala and gives your prefrontal cortex a precious moment to catch up and come back online. It's in that gap that you regain the possibility of choice. Second, label your feelings. This is a technique with a lot of neuroscience behind it. When you're in the grip of a strong emotion, simply saying to yourself, either out loud or in your head, I'm feeling angry, or this is fear, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, works like magic. This act of naming the emotion activates parts of your prefrontal cortex. It shifts you from being completely consumed by the feeling to observing the feeling. This labeling process actually helps to calm the amygdala's frantic firing. It's like turning a flashlight on a scary monster in a dark room. Once you see it for what it is, it loses some of its power over you. Third, ground yourself in the present moment. When you're triggered, your brain is often reacting to a past threat as if it's happening right now. Grounding techniques are designed to pull your awareness back to the safety of the present. A simple way to do this is the 5-4-3-2-1 method. Look around and name 5 things you can see. Then, notice 4 things you can feel, like your feet on the floor or the texture of your shirt. Listen for 3 things you can hear. Identify 2 things you can smell. And finally, notice 1 thing you can taste. This sensory exercise forces your brain to engage with your immediate environment, which sends a powerful signal to your nervous system that you are here, now, and you are safe. It breaks the trance of the emotional flashback. Finally, and this is more of a long-term strategy, practice mindfulness. This doesn't have to mean sitting on a cushion for an hour every day. It can be as simple as 5 minutes a day. You can use a guided meditation app, or simply focus on your breath. Pay attention to the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body. When your mind wanders, as it inevitably will, gently guide your focus back to your breath without judgment. Each time you do this, each time you notice your mind has wandered and you gently bring it back, you are doing a rep at the gym for your prefrontal cortex. You are literally strengthening its ability to focus, to direct attention, and to regulate your emotions. Over time, this daily practice builds the PFC's muscle, making it stronger and more readily available when you need it most. These tools, pausing, labeling, grounding, and mindfulness, are not quick fixes, but they are powerful ways to begin retraining your brain. They help you move from being a passenger on a runaway emotional train to becoming the conductor, able to slow things down and choose your direction. It's about reclaiming your power, one breath, one moment at a time. Thank you so much for watching. If this was helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more content on healing and thriving. Ever feel like your emotions are running the show and your logical brain has just left the building? Like you're stuck in a loop of panic, anxiety, or just feeling overwhelmed all the time? If so, you're not alone, and there's a really good reason for it. It often comes down to a specific part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, or PFC. Think of the PFC as your brain's CEO. It's in charge of rational thought, planning, problem solving, and keeping your emotions in check. It's the part of you that says, okay, let's take a deep breath and think this through, instead of immediately flying into fight, flight, or freeze mode. But when we go through trauma or long periods of intense stress, our brain's survival system, the amygdala, takes over. It's like the emergency alarm that won't turn off. This constant state of high alert can essentially sideline the PFC. The CEO gets locked out of the office, and the intern in charge of the panic button is running the whole company. This can leave you feeling like you can't think clearly, you're always on edge, and your reactions are bigger than the situation calls for. But here's the most important thing I want you to hear today. This is not permanent. Your prefrontal cortex isn't broken. It's just been offline. And just like a muscle, you can train it, strengthen it, and bring it back online, stronger than ever. The brain has this incredible ability called neuroplasticity, which means it can change and rewire itself. You can literally rebuild the connections that put your inner CEO back in charge. So, how do we actually do this? How do we start rebuilding that connection and healing the prefrontal cortex? Let's dive into some powerful, practical strategies, starting with a few key therapeutic approaches that are specifically designed for this kind of rewiring. One of the most well-known and effective methods is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. The core idea of CBT is to help you become aware of the automatic negative thoughts that keep you stuck. When the PFC is offline, our thinking can become distorted. We might think in black and white terms, jump to the worst possible conclusions, or take everything personally. For example, after a setback, your automatic thought might be, "I'm a complete failure. I always mess everything up." This kind of thinking just fuels the emotional fire. CBT teaches you to catch that thought, examine it like a detective, and replace it with a more balanced and realistic one. Instead of "I always fail," you learn to reframe it as, "Okay, I made a mistake on this one thing, but that doesn't define me. What can I learn from this, and how can I try again differently?" Each time you do this, you're actively using your PFC to challenge the emotional brain. It's like doing a mental push-up. Over time, this consistent practice carves new neural pathways, making rational thinking your new default. Another fantastic approach is mindfulness-based therapy. If trauma keeps you stuck reliving the past or anxiety has you constantly worrying about the future, mindfulness is your anchor to the present moment. It teaches you to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, just letting them pass by like clouds in the sky. This practice directly strengthens the PFC's ability to regulate attention and emotion. You're not trying to stop your thoughts or fight your feelings. You're simply choosing not to get swept away by them. This creates a crucial space between a feeling and your reaction to it. That space is where your PFC lives. It's in that pause that you regain the power to choose your response, rather than being driven by an automatic emotional reaction. Then there's a fascinating technique called neurofeedback. This is like personal training for your brainwaves. During a session, sensors are placed on your scalp to monitor your brain activity in real time. This information is then displayed back to you, often as a video game or a sound. For example, the game might only move forward when your brain is producing calm, focused brainwaves, the kind associated with a healthy PFC. It's direct, immediate feedback that trains your brain to enter and maintain a state of calm and focus. It's a way of learning to regulate your own brain activity consciously, strengthening the exact neural circuits you need for emotional balance and clear thinking. Finally, let's talk about somatic therapy. The word soma means body. This therapy is based on the understanding that trauma isn't just stored in our minds. It's stored in our bodies as tension, chronic pain, or a constant feeling of being on guard. Somatic therapy helps you tune into these physical sensations. By focusing on your body, you can learn to notice where you're holding that stress and use techniques like gentle movement or breathwork to help your nervous system release it. This process helps your body understand that the danger has passed and it's safe to relax. When your body feels safe, it sends signals to your brain that it's okay to switch off the alarm system, which allows the PFC to come back online and do its job. While therapy is an incredible tool, there are also simple, powerful techniques you can use anytime, anywhere, to instantly activate your prefrontal cortex and ground yourself in the present moment. Think of these as your first aid kit for when you feel overwhelmed. One of the most effective is a grounding technique called the 5-4-3-2-1 method. It's so simple, yet it works wonders. When you feel anxiety or panic starting to build, pause and deliberately engage your senses. First, name 5 things you can see around you. Really look at them: the color of the wall, a crack in the ceiling, a plant on your desk. Next, name 4 things you can feel: the texture of your shirt, the chair beneath you, the cool air on your skin. Then, name 3 things you can hear: the hum of a computer, birds outside, your own breathing. After that, name 2 things you can smell: the scent of your coffee, the perfume you're wearing. And finally, name 1 thing you can taste. Maybe it's the lingering taste of your toothpaste or a sip of water. This exercise pulls your brain out of the emotional storm of past or future worries and forces it into the present sensory world. It's a direct command to your PFC to take the wheel and focus on what's real, right here, right now. Another powerful tool is deep, intentional breathing. When we are stressed, our breathing becomes shallow and rapid, which tells our brain there's a threat. We can reverse this by consciously changing our breathing pattern. A simple and effective one is the 4-4-6 breath. You inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4, hold your breath gently for a count of 4, and then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. Making the exhale longer than the inhale is key, as it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and digest system. It's like hitting the brakes on your stress response. Doing this for just a few minutes sends a powerful signal from your body to your brain that you are safe, calming the amygdala and allowing the PFC to step forward. Journaling is another fantastic way to engage your PFC when your thoughts are swirling around in your head. They can feel huge and chaotic. Writing them down forces you to organize them. The act of finding the right words, forming sentences, and creating a coherent narrative is a high-level PFC function. It takes the jumbled mess of emotions and thoughts and gives them structure. This process helps you gain distance and perspective. You can look at your thoughts on the page and analyze them more objectively, which is a core function of your brain's CEO. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just a simple brain dump of whatever is on your mind can be incredibly clarifying and calming. It's not just about mental exercises. Your physical health and daily routines play a massive role in the health of your prefrontal cortex. Let's talk about how lifestyle choices can be one of your most powerful allies in this healing journey. First and foremost, physical exercise. You've heard it a million times, but it's crucial for brain health. When you move your body, you increase blood flow to the brain, delivering more oxygen and nutrients right to the PFC. Exercise also releases endorphins, which are natural mood boosters, and helps reduce the stress hormone, cortisol. You don't need to run a marathon. Something as simple as a brisk 20-minute walk, a dance session in your living room, or some gentle yoga can make a huge difference. The key is consistency. Making movement a regular part of your day helps regulate your nervous system and provides a solid foundation for your PFC to function optimally. It improves focus, lifts your mood, and helps you think more clearly. Next up, your daily routines. The brain loves predictability, especially a brain that's been through the chaos of trauma. Having a consistent routine helps create a sense of safety and stability. This starts with sleep. Good quality sleep is when your brain does its most important cleanup and repair work. A consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up around the same time each day, helps regulate your body's internal clock, which in turn supports emotional regulation and cognitive function. Nutrition and hydration are also non-negotiable. Your brain is a high-energy organ, and it needs premium fuel. A diet rich in fruits, vegetables, healthy fats like those found in avocados and nuts, and lean proteins gives your brain the building blocks it needs to create healthy neural connections. On the flip side, processed foods and high-sugar snacks can cause inflammation and mood swings, making it harder for your PFC to do its job. And don't forget water. Dehydration can directly impact your ability to focus and think clearly. Keeping a water bottle with you throughout the day is a simple but powerful habit. These foundational pillars, exercise, sleep, nutrition, and hydration, create the right biological environment for your prefrontal cortex to heal and thrive. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, let's talk about the power of safe relationships. Humans are social creatures. Our brains are wired for connection. When we experience trauma, especially at the hands of another person, our ability to trust can be deeply damaged. Our nervous system learns that people are not safe, which keeps the alarm bells ringing. Healing this requires experiencing safe, supportive connections. This can be a relationship with a therapist, a trusted friend, a partner, or a family member. Someone who listens without judgment, offers empathy, and makes you feel seen and heard. When you talk openly with someone you trust, and they respond with compassion, your nervous system learns that connection can be safe again. This process is called co-regulation, where another person's calm and steady presence helps to calm your own nervous system. Sharing your feelings and having them validated helps you make sense of your experiences, which is a PFC function. It strengthens the pathways for emotional regulation because you're practicing it in a safe context. Safe relationships help your PFC rebuild its capacity for trust, emotional control, and social connection. They are the relational nutrient that helps your brain heal the wounds of the past. So, as you start to put these pieces together, the therapeutic techniques, the grounding exercises, the healthy routines, and the safe connections, what does this healing actually look and feel like? How will you know your PFC is coming back online and getting stronger? The changes are gradual but profound. It's all about restoring the balance between emotion and reason. One of the first things you'll notice is the appearance of a pause. That tiny space between a trigger and your reaction. Before, a critical comment at work might have sent you into a spiral of shame or a defensive outburst. Now, you might feel that initial sting of emotion, but then something new happens. You take a breath. That's your PFC stepping in. You find yourself thinking, okay, that felt bad, but let me consider the feedback. Is there any truth to it? How can I respond constructively? Instead of shutting down or lashing out, you're able to think through the situation and choose a calm, measured response. That's your inner CEO back in the driver's seat. You'll also start to feel a greater sense of overall calmness. The constant, low-level hum of anxiety begins to fade. You'll find it easier to think clearly, even under pressure. You'll be better able to separate past fear from present safety. A loud noise might still startle you, but you'll recover faster because your PFC can quickly assess the situation and tell your amygdala, it's just a car backfiring. We are safe. You'll find yourself more present, more able to enjoy small moments without your mind being hijacked by worries about the future or ghosts of the past. Your prefrontal cortex is your inner guide. It's the wisest part of you, the part that thinks, plans, and chooses peace over panic. When trauma or chronic stress silences it, life can feel chaotic and overwhelming. But it's never a life sentence. With time, care, and consistent practice, you can help it find its voice again. The brain can heal. The mind can lead again. This journey is about gently and patiently rebuilding that connection. One conscious breath, one reframed thought, one supportive conversation at a time. Thank you so much for watching. If this was helpful, please consider subscribing for more content on healing and mental well-being. Take care.